Hey everybody, it's Jay Baer. Thanks very much for being here this afternoon. Really appreciate it. As I just mentioned on Twitter a moment ago, they are mowing my grass right now at home. So I am actually, the first time I've ever done a webinar, I am in the closet of my 13-year-old daughter. I've actually never spent any time in here, and it's really pretty fascinating. It's like an anthropological sort of mission. So there's dolls and there's slap watches and there's all kinds of other craziness. Also found an Easter basket, so that's awesome. So if you hear a long pause at some point during this webinar, I'm probably into the jelly beans a little bit. Today we're going to talk about the 8 wrong questions agencies are asking about social media. You'll see the hashtag there on the bottom. I am at JBear. Feel free to tweet to your heart's content. My company is Convince and Convert. We are a social media and content acceleration firm. We work with agencies all across North America on how to package, price, staff, and sell social media. So we're delighted to work with many folks in the agency community. My background, of course, is on the agency side, and I think some of our clients may be here on the webinar today. So thank you, as always, for your support. That's my book, The Now Revolution, which I wrote last year with the amazing Amber Naslund. If you haven't had a chance to read it, please do so. Also wanted to shout out to our friends at Agency Side who put this webinar together today. They are an amazing company. Their signature event is coming up this fall. It's called BOLO. It is a digital marketing conference only for agencies. I have been fortunate enough to have been a participant in BOLO for many years now. I will be back at BOLO in October. A bunch of other great people are going to be there. Paul Rotzer will be there, who's amazing. Tom Webster will be there. A bunch of really smart agency folks from Whitehorse and a lot of other organizations. So if you're serious about digital at your agency, and you probably are if you're on this webinar, I really suggest that you come to BOLO. You will really, really appreciate it. You can't beat the price, and it is a fantastic conference. Let's talk a little bit about the State of the Union here. We are in the middle of a gold rush. Forrester research predicts that social media overall will go from about a $2.1 billion business to almost a $5 billion business by 2016. Now that's a compounded annual growth rate of 26% a year. Now, other than mobile, that far outpaces any other part of the digital experience. So you're talking about a 26% increase in top-line revenue every year for the next 5 years. There's very few things in your agency that you can rely upon to put up those kind of gains. More specifically, for the people on this webinar, we are in a $900 million fight. All of us on this call are in a $900 million fight. Those $900 million are basically the difference between what's being spent now in social media agency fees, okay, $635 million in 2011 according to Forrester, versus what's going to be spent on social media agency fees by 2016, approximately $1.5 billion a year. So that $900 million gap from 635 to 1.523 is really what we're fighting about. Are you and your agency going to get your fair share, or your disproportionate share ideally, of those $900 million? And in their quest to get part of that $900 million, I find that agencies ask a lot of questions. As I said, we work with lots and lots of agencies. I hear these questions all the time, so I wrote them down. Many of them are the wrong questions, and hopefully we can steer you on the right course today and that you will find this interesting. We're going to try and keep this relatively tight, as we promised that we would. We'll try and keep it to 45 minutes or so, but I have been known to ramble. If you have questions, please put them into the questions box over on the GoToWebinar control panel kind of thing that you should see. Just put your questions in there, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. If we don't have as much time as we'd hoped to do questions, feel free to tweet me or email me or whatever you want to do. My email is j@convinceandconvert.com. First question that I hear all the time: what's the hot new trend we can bring to our clients? Agencies want to deliver the thing to clients that the client has never heard of, because ostensibly that makes the agency seem really smart and cool and on the cutting edge. Here's a better question. How can we optimize and improve our existing social media programs? I get asked a lot from people who are doing sort of State of the Union reports and things like that. Hey, Jay, what do you think is the new hot thing in social media? And I always say the new hot thing is doing today's hot thing well. Because if you think we've got Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn or blogs or YouTube or Pinterest or Instagram figured out, that we're doing that perfectly, I can tell you for a fact that you are wrong. The killer app is optimization. The killer app is doing it with science, not just pulling it out of your butt. And as we get more and more software and technology and science added to social media, we're going to be able to do it more purposefully with greater levels of measurement. The same thing that happened in digital, right? There was one point we just kind of winged it in banner ads and email and search as well, and now we would never think of winging it because we have the culture of optimization and the science of optimization available at all times. And you have to think about, too, what's going to actually deliver more value for your clients? Doing Facebook better or launching a new Pinterest program? And maybe it is Pinterest in some cases, but in many cases I believe doing what you're already doing better is going to yield better business outcomes than doing something new just because it's new. Because you have to remember, all of this has tremendous opportunity cost for your agency. Social media is not inexpensive. It's just different expensive. It is an AE killer. It is where account coordinators go to die, because it requires a ton of labor that you may not be able to monetize in your agency. So everything you recommend that's new is going to require disproportionate labor on your team because you have to ramp it up. So think about it next time. Always remember ABO. Always be optimizing. Second question I hear all the time. What's the best way to get Facebook likes and Twitter follows? This comes a lot trickle down from clients who really want to be able to say to their friends at the local business guy club, look how many Facebook fans we have. And I've said this in the past, right, that Facebook fans is probably the most overrated metric in the history of math. The better question is, how can we encourage existing fans to take action in social media? Right? It's not about collecting fans. It's about activating them. There's no magic number in social media. We hear people say, likes, we need more likes, we need more likes. And seriously, talking about likes is becoming what talking about website hits used to be, a dead giveaway that you don't actually know what you're doing. Because hits, of course, is not actually the same as a visit or a page view. It's how many times graphics loads, a totally different metric. So here's the thing. If when you logged onto a website, in the top right-hand corner of the page, it showed how many email subscribers you have, we'd be having conferences about email subscribers. The reason we care about Facebook likes and Twitter follows is because they're a public number. You don't even have to run a report. It's a very public dick measuring contest. Okay? It doesn't necessarily mean that your business is successful, because you have to understand that social connections, Facebook likes, Twitter followers, are typically a trailing indicator of success, not a leading indicator of success. People who like you on Facebook actually like you in 3 dimensions. Think about how you use Facebook. How often do you go to Facebook and you sort of tool around and like, yeah, I have never heard of this company and I have no idea what they do, but I'm going to click this like button. Right? You don't do that. Nobody does that. You like what you like. And in fact, a research study from DDB last year found that 84% of Facebook fans are current or former customers, which absolutely passes the sniff test. We like what we like. So it's not so much about collecting new fans, because they're not new fans. All you're doing is identifying customers you already have in a new channel. So ultimately, it's all about behavior. How can you get these Facebook fans, these Twitter followers, these Pinterest followers, what have you, how can you get them to act, not just click one button one time? And you have to realize, especially in Facebook, right, you're fighting against a pocket veto. Facebook's edge rank, which is the formula they use to determine who sees what in their newsfeed, they've already admitted publicly that they will give you 16% open rate, essentially Facebook's version of open rate, a 16% coverage using EdgeRanks, which means if you have 100 fans, no more than 16 of those fans will actually see any piece of content you publish on Facebook unless you pay for Facebook advertising. And of course, most brands, people talking about this, and Facebook reach is much lower than 16%. Typically, it's in the 1-2% range. So on Facebook, it's all about interaction, right? It's all about getting the thumb up or the comment or the share, because that ensures that more people will see your future status updates. Here's an example from one of our clients, Visit California. This is, sort of how you have to play that Facebook game. Using one word to tell us why you'd love to visit California. 19 people like it, 78 comments. Those 97 people will almost assuredly see the next thing that's published by Visit California on Facebook. Okay, so it's not about collecting the like. It's about driving behavior once that like button is pressed. I want you to remember this. Print this out. Put it in your office. The goal isn't to be good at social media. The goal is to be good at business because of social media, and it's not the same thing. Question 3, how can we make a viral video that gets thousands of views? Anybody ever say that? I hear it all the time. Better question, how can we optimize a video so that our prospective customers find it? The thing about video is that we're always swinging for the fences, right? We're always trying to catch lightning in a bottle. We want to be the next, water skiing squirrel or whatever the sensation is. And if you look at actually how YouTube works mathematically, only 38% of YouTube videos get even 1,000 views, right? So the breakout hits are few and far between. If you look at, the number of videos that get over 100,000 views, it's 1.73%. And that doesn't mean you can't do it. Maybe you're amazing. Maybe you will catch lightning in a bottle. But strategically, I don't know that that's the best plan. And I certainly don't believe it makes a lot of sense to get your clients to expect that to happen. I get a little bit sickened by the virus, by the notion of viral video. Because here's the thing. It's not viral unless it is. All it is a video unless it's viral. Right? It's an adjective, right? Not a noun. And most of the videos that actually go viral, that become really popular, are carefully seeded, and they're part of a larger program. We talk a lot about Old Spice and the success of that program, and it was amazing and those kind of things. But that campaign was also supported by a multi-million-dollar television buy. It's not as if they just took, Isaiah Mustafa and said, okay, hey, make some videos and just from scratch it became a hit. It didn't work like that. It's called a media mix, right? Because there's a mix of media. So I think you should consider video to be more of a mid-funnel tactic rather than a top-of-the-funnel tactic. Try and create videos that are optimized with search terms and descriptions and content approaches that your target prospects and current customers will appreciate. Think about video as a conversion mechanism rather than an attention mechanism, and I think you'll be way better off. First and foremost in that approach is to be helpful, right? Yeah, you can be funny, you can be cute, you can be clever. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, but you know what always works? Helpfulness. Fourth question, how much money should we pull out of our email budget to pay for social media? I think a better question is, how can we better integrate email and social to increase relevancy and results? Because here's the thing, right? It's really two sides of the same coin. Social media is largely an opt-in construct, right? The people who you interact with on Facebook, the people who you interact with on Twitter, the people who you interact with on your blog or via YouTube or Pinterest or Instagram typically choose to do so. Now, certainly there's a scenario by which one of your customers sees something that you did on Facebook and reshares it, and so then that shows it to some people who maybe didn't know you exist. There is that ripple in the pond effect, but that is really the exception rather than the rule. Most social interactions are of the opt-in variety. People choose to interact with your company in social media, and that is exactly the same way that email works, right? Email is an opt-in construct. People choose to receive emails from you. So really what we're trying to do in social then, especially if you buy into the DDB stat of most of your social connections being existing customers, as I do, what we're trying to do in social is to keep your brand top of mind among people who have given you permission to do so. Use social media to keep the brand top of mind among people who have given you permission to do so. And that's exactly the same thing that we typically use email for. We use email to keep the brand top of mind among people who have given us permission to do so. A lot of the mechanics of social and email are very the same. In fact, I feel like, really, email is Madonna, right? The original article. Maybe a little tired now, maybe a little played, not nearly as cool as she once was, but the original. And Facebook is Gaga. New, hip, weird, changing all the time. But at the end of the day, it's the exact same thing, but with a fresh cut of point. You can really be synergistic about your email and social media. In fact, I'm doing a webinar next week all about this topic, 17 ways to integrate email and Facebook, so look for that. You can and should gather email subscriptions in social. You see at the bottom there is the sign-up form for our email newsletter, One Social Thing. That's on our Facebook page. You can also use your email newsletter to drive social subscriptions via Facebook, Twitter, etc., and you should. And one thing we don't do enough of but should is cross-platform testing and optimization. So some of the things I'll talk about next week on the other webinar are things like, hey, using Facebook ads to test email subject lines and vice versa. Fifth question, how can we convince our clients that we're good at social media? I hear this all the time, right? We have to compete against the digital agencies and the other PR firms and the ad agencies and the social media specialty agencies. How do we convince our clients that we're good at this? I think a better question is, how can we create content in a bunch of different formats that actually demonstrates that expertise? The content does the convincing. There's only 4 reasons that agencies need to be creating content. The first one is to retain your existing clients, right? Your clients want to be reminded that they have made a good professional services choice, and your content marketing program provides that reminder. You need to make sure that your current clients are consuming the content that you create. We massively overlook retention as a goal for content marketing in the agency business. The second thing, somewhat related, is to upsell new services to clients. If you all of a sudden create a new service line in your agency that is going to help your customers create and deploy a multimedia strategy to take advantage of the new photocentric social media world, Pinterest, Instagram, larger photos on Google+, etc. You're gonna help them with a multimedia content strategy. You should be creating content on your blog and elsewhere that talks about the importance of a multimedia strategy and how it comes together. You can use your content marketing as an entree, as a foot in the door, as a fulcrum for introducing new services to your existing clients. You can also and should also use content marketing to improve your conversion rate, which is something that's important to lots of smart agencies. They pay attention to their inbound leads and their RFP participation and their hit rate, and they very much should do that. But I'll tell you, if you have the luxury of time or you have the luxury of a vertical focus, so let's say you've got an RFP and it's not due for 3 weeks, and that RFP is in the telco industry, you know what you should do during that 3-week period? you should create as much content as possible about social media for the telco industry, because I guarantee you the people who are evaluating RFP responses, the people on the selection committee, are going to be looking at your website and your blog. And if you can demonstrate your expertise, not necessarily in your PowerPoint pitch, but in your actual public thought leadership and content marketing, that's going to go a long way to demonstrating your expertise. Same thing if you have a vertical. It's actually much easier if you have a vertical. If you primarily do B2B healthcare public relations, you can create an entire blog around B2B healthcare public relations and social media convergence, and you probably should do so. And the last reason that agencies should do content marketing and thought leadership is to generate inbound leads, to be smart about keywords, to be smart about SEO, to get people at top of the funnel to find you who perhaps didn't know your agency in the past. But here's the reality. In almost every case, if you talk to agencies, the last bullet point on this list is the reason they think they're in the content marketing game. And that's the least important one, not the most important one. And it's not just about your blog. So many agencies are like, well, we got this great blog, so we're going to click, we're done, right? Check the checkbox about content marketing. And that's not it at all. You have to have centralized content that you own, that's on your site, and then decentralized content that is spread around the internet. Having a blog is just table stakes, right? That's the ante. What about commenting on other blogs? What about guest posting? What about YouTube? What about SlideShare? What about podcasts? There's a lot of other stuff that you can and should be doing to draw attention to your agency and your capabilities beyond just writing blog posts. Because here's the thing. SlideShare has tens of millions of people visiting that site every month. Your agency blog doesn't. Be a digital dandelion. Take what you know and spread it as far as possible. Get over this habit of saying we have to own and control every bit of thought leadership we create. It has to be on our .com. No, it does not. And the other reason that you should be a digital dandelion is that it gets more bait in the water. And it gets more bait in the water for the person who is actually your most important customer. We all have the same most important customer, amazingly. It's some guy named Google. So the more you decentralize your content, the more exposure you have in search, and ultimately that's going to yield positive outcomes. Question 6, how can we create a killer social media campaign that gets noticed? I think a better question is, how can we develop a sustainable, ongoing social strategy that turns customers into advocates over the long term? Social media success is a marathon, not a sprint. We've got to get out of this legacy campaign mindset around what are we going to do this month or what are we going to do this quarter, because it pushes all the wrong buttons. Yes, in a microcosm, social media happens very fast, but the results of social media typically accrue very slowly. It is a huge paradox, because what we're doing in social is almost the exact opposite of what we do in public relations and advertising, and to a somewhat lesser degree digital. In those legacy modalities, we're winning hearts and minds and attention in batches. We run a TV spot and a bunch of people see it. We run a magazine ad and a bunch of people see it. We get a placement in a important magazine and a bunch of people see it. We are moving the masses as a mass. In social, it's almost the exact opposite. Because of the opt-in nature that we talked about earlier, we're winning hearts and minds a few at a time. A few at a time, not many at a time. You're trying to delight people on a one-to-one or one-to-few basis, and that takes a lot longer to tip the scales in your favor. Social media is a process. It's not a project, okay? And that's partially because you earn the right to promote. Right? You can't just fill your social stream with special offers and look how awesome our company is. It won't work. People will just tune you out. So you earn the right to promote by being helpful, by being spontaneous, by being interesting, by shining the light on other people, all those kind of things. That's not to say you're not using it for a business. Of course you are. But the more you sell in social, the less you sell. So it takes courage to say, you know what, this is a long con, right? This is not smash and grab. It takes courage to understand that, and it takes even more courage to make your clients understand that. But I encourage you to do so, because even though you may give up some short-term client wins, you may even give up some short-term revenue by insisting that social is a long-term play. I guarantee you that when we look back on this in 3 years, the people who embrace the long-term loyalty and retention nature of social are going to be a lot better off than the agencies who specialize in what's our contest of the day. What I want you to do is focus more on how to be social and worry less about how to do social media. If you can help your clients understand how the organization is social, they'll be better off and you'll be better off. Question number 7. How can we get influential bloggers to write about our client? I get something in the neighborhood of 20 to 25 pitches a day. And while my blog does very well, and thank you to everybody who reads it, I'm not Oprah or the Huffington Post, so I can't imagine what really popular bloggers get. It is crazy because it's too easy, right? It's too easy to just press send on the bulk email and, hey, we've got this ridiculous product that you would never write about, but how about writing about it? The better question is, how can we build lasting relationships with emerging voices and with real fans? Realize this, in blogging, everybody big started small. Every blogger starts with the exact same audience, which is 0, right? And then you convince your mom to start reading it, and then maybe your friends read it, and then it kind of goes from there. It's unlike traditional, where if you are the beat writer for the local paper in your market, and let's say you write the business section for the local paper, that guy leaves. The guy who gets hired has instant credibility, has an instant audience. Because in traditional, right, influence is baked into the institution. In new media, influence is baked into the author, which is a totally different paradigm. So don't confuse influence and audience, okay? Just because, and this is the problem I sometimes have with clout and things like that, just because somebody has a big blog following or a social media following or has lots of followers or clout score, what have you, does not necessarily mean that they can cause that group of readers to act, right? So influence and audience are not the same thing. And what I find is that when I work with my agency clients on influencer outreach or blogger outreach, what we try and look at for are the emerging voices. Don't look for the most popular blogs in your category. It's ridiculous. They get pitched every day. The chances of them writing your thing is a lot lower. Find the second, third, fourth tier bloggers in your category who are just kind of building that audience. They're going to be more delighted to be asked, and they're much more likely to participate. And some of those guys who are the small bloggers now are going to be big bloggers in a year, and you're going to already have a relationship with them. It's a much better long-term approach. Okay? Influence is no match, however, for advocacy. And I don't care whether it's a new blogger, old blogger, it doesn't really matter. It's just like celebrity endorsement. Okay? If you convince a blogger or some sort of new media person to tweet about your thing or blog about it, etc., yeah, maybe they like it, generally that kind of thing. But influence is no match for advocacy. If you want the most powerful sort of content around, start with your customers. Start with people who have actually spent money to acquire whatever it is that you sell. Those are the people who are really psyched about it. I think too often Agencies say, well, our customers don't have any influence or don't have any audience, so let's go make up for that by finding people who really don't care about our product and convincing them that it's worth their attention. You're much better off getting genuine statements of support from actual customers, and then using your efforts and your resources to drive awareness of that. Okay? You have to realize social isn't about the company talking. It's about the company facilitating other people talking. If the company, if your client, your agent is creating chatter, you're doing it wrong. Find a way to facilitate customer chatter. You'll be much better off. One of the things that we use at Convince and Convert with our clients to find bloggers, small, medium, large, categorical, etc., is a great service called Group High. I absolutely love it. And Group High is relatively inexpensive. We actually wrote about it today on the blog, and you can do a search, in this case, mom bloggers, and it will give you a whole list of those folks. And then you can also, there we go. You can kind of zoom in and it will show you that particular blogger's SEO rank, how many followers they have, how many likes they have, where they're located. You can track them on Facebook, Twitter. You can create a media list. You can internally say, hey, we've contacted that person, we haven't contacted them, etc. It is very useful. The last question is, how can we find a social media guru to add to our team? And I hear this a lot, and if you even just look at the job listings, lots of agencies are seeking sort of vice president social media, director of social media, that kind of position. And I think the better question is, how can we distribute knowledge across the entire firm, including ongoing training and knowledge sharing really, throughout the whole organization? It's really tricky because you've got, in many cases, some sort of short-term pain. More and more clients are asking you about social. You need somebody or somebodies in the agency to talk to those clients, to come up with strategies, to oversee social programs. I get all that. You need your short-term pain taken away, but I will tell you firsthand that this is exactly the same way it was when digital first came out. And if you get too guru-centric, what you end up with is a person in your agency who you hired to do social media stuff, who ironically cannot do any social media stuff because all she does is go to meetings and work with other account teams. You essentially prohibit your hot new resource from doing the thing that you brought her there to do, because all the knowledge about social is centralized in that one person's head. You create a barrier to operational execution in your own firm. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in another webinar we're going to do here with Bolo and agency side in August 29th, a guru or the gang, evaluating the 4 methods of social media staffing. So I hope you'll join us for that one as well. Between today and then, doing a webinar in June 13th, the 23 social and digital services your agency should be selling, but probably isn't. You can actually get a seat for that right now or right after we're done here, and I suggest that you do because it's going to sell out, I believe, ar.gy/23 services, small s, I believe. I'm pretty sure that's case sensitive, and you can jump on and make a reservation for that. Guru or the Gang in August, and then of course Bolo 2012 in October with me, Tom Webster, Paul Rotzer, folks from Whitehorse. It's going to be amazing. Sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, my former stomping grounds. I will buy the tequila if you go to Bolo. Also, if you want to get the slides today, looks like maybe we had a little bit of an audio cutout, so I apologize for that. Hopefully it'll show up on the recording. Either way, if you want to get these slides, and I hope that you do, just put your email address into either the chat or the question box over there on the right-hand side, and we will make sure you get a copy of the slides, and I will also sign you up for our brand new email newsletter called One Social Thing that we just started. Every single day, me and my team put together this email. You'll get it once a night, and it is one thing, the single best thing about social media and content marketing that you should have read that day. So for time-starved people like we all are, it is content curation taken to its logical conclusion. One thing a day. We'll sign you up for the email newsletter. If you don't like it, unsubscribe, and I will be okay. Remember, Bolo, Scottsdale, October, bolo2012.com, $699 until May 31st. Then the price goes up a little bit, so lock that in while you can. And I am Jay Baer from Convince and Convert. That's my book now, Revolution. ConvinceandConvert.com, jbaer.com, and I think we've got a couple of minutes for questions. Let's see if we got some questions over there in the box. Okay. Great. This is an excellent point. The question was, yes, it may take a year to build a relationship, I was talking about with bloggers, but this is no different than traditional media relations. The problem is that clients won't buy it when you say, I'll get you results in 6 months or a year. That is a super interesting point, and actually I've written about this quite a bit, and I talked to a lot of our agency clients about this. Agencies that have a vertical focus actually have a real advantage, I think, in modern influencer outreach and media relations. Because let's say your agency primarily does B2B healthcare. I think I mentioned that earlier. If your agency primarily does B2B healthcare, you can take account people and encourage them to build blogger relationships right now, even if you don't necessarily have a client or a project to build that relationship generation to. Because you know that eventually those relationships will be there and you eventually will be able to monetize those relationships. So what I always tell agencies with a vertical focus is go ahead and just do it. Just get all those blogger relationships built now the same way you would with traditional media, and then eventually it'll make sense. Agencies that have no vertical focus do have a really tough time because all of a sudden you get a new client and this client needs you to reach tech writers in Des Moines. And you're like, shit, we don't know anybody in Des Moines. We don't know any tech writers in Des Moines in particular. So then from the time the client says go and they fire the starting pistol, you have to start building those relationships. And so it ends up being either a cold pitch to the blogger or at best a lukewarm pitch as opposed to a warm pitch, which is what you would absolutely want. So in the best possible scenario, you start to build those relationships long before you need them, the same way you would with traditional media. And it's easier to do that if you have a tighter vertical focus as a company. Okay, there's a question here that not surprised necessarily about the ratio of tech spending to agency fees at the very beginning. In fact, I'll go back to that slide real quick so people can look at it. Right here, that we look at agency fees will be 1.5 million, and social media technology is 970 million. So almost 2 to 1, certainly 1.75 to 1 in terms of fees versus technology. And we hear so much chatter in the industry now about Buddy Media and Vitru and Involver and Radiant 6 and all these sort of fee-based software programs, and that's absolutely true. But I think what we've come to realize, and it shows up in this Forrester data, is that you can't confuse the wizard and the wand. Having a software package gets you nothing other than having a software package. Somebody has to manage that software. Somebody has to run reports. Most importantly, somebody has to know what those reports mean and how to make it actionable. It is a really labor-intensive business. So while certainly there's going to be a lot of dollars spent on the technology side, I think it's useful to see how much they're projecting there to be on the manpower side. And if you think about advertising, media budget versus labor, it's probably the other way around. So good trend for the future, I think. Okay, I think that is it for questions. We'll let you out 1 minute early. Thanks again for participating and for your twittering and all those kind of things. I'm Jay Baer. Please join us on June 23rd for the 23 social and digital services your agency should be selling but probably isn't. And then later this summer for a Guru or the Gang. And then this fall a Bolo. Thanks as always for your kind attention. Cheers.